Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold, her early leafs a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief, so dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. That's Robert Frost in 1923. He lived from 1874 to 1963. Today's video is a tribute to Chukotka, Alaska, and Victor Goldsberry, who ran the store Chukotka, Alaska from 1992 until his death in 2012. It's a story of endings and beginnings in the churn of life. I met Victor in 2009 when I first came to Nome. He was still running the Chukotka Alaska Store at nearly 70 years old. He sat behind a plain office desk in the middle of a tiny converted trailer that was turned into a double wide. He smoked continuously the whole time I would visit there, and you could not pack a space with more items than that space was filled with. It was full of furs and beads and Russian toys and artifacts and just about anything related to Russia and Alaska Native art that you could find. It was a center of getting supplies to build and create, and it was an amazing space that supported many artists and creators. It's the type of thing that's disappearing from Nome. Places like Builders Industrials and Q Trucking are of a time in history that I'm afraid is going away, probably getting taxed and zoned out of existence. This store here would be difficult to create Victor's store. So here you're watching us take apart the Chukotka Alaska trailer. Let me tell you about Victor. Victor was born in Lima, Ohio in 1941. He grew up there and graduated high school in 1959, enrolled in Miami University in Ohio for a year, and joined the Marine Corps, serving in active duty until 1963. He then went back to school where he obtained his degree in political science and English and ran a restaurant for 4 years, and then went on to law school in Tampa, Florida. And in his final year of law school, he realized he was not a lawyer, and then moved to Nome in 1969. He taught English and history at Nome Belts High School from the late 60s to the early 70s. He then went to work for the state of Alaska as an employment specialist, which, interestingly enough, is an office I would later work on in the first years I was in Nome. This job allowed me to travel all over the region and visit nearly all of the villages, and Victor, a transplant like me, an English major, fell in love with the people here and their crafts. In 1992, he opened up the store you're seeing us work on, and he sold native crafts and Russian artifacts, but primarily I knew the store as a place that sold crafting supplies, raw furs, beads, threads, anything you would need to make native art. I'm a sailmaker, and here in the middle of nowhere was a place that I could buy heavy-duty hand needles, catgut, and other supplies to build traditional sails and repair sails for sailors stopping in Nome and for the sails on my own boat on their way to transit the Northwest Passage. I never met his second wife, Nadezhda, who Victor met after the fall of communist Russia in 1989, but Nadezhda would joke that his shop was actually his second wife. After Victor's death in 2012, the store was eventually sold to Jim Dory and Carol Gales, who I call the Crazy Dorys. They own the former Discovery Saloon you see right next to the trailer, the oldest surviving gold rush building in our town. And they've been working on that forever. The Chukotka trailer next door, compared to their gold rush saloon, could be called an eyesore. For a time, Jim and Carol rented the trailer out, but they soon found out they didn't like being landlords in our region, and so it sat empty for years, and then they decided to sell it. So I saw an ad in Nome Announce, which is an ancient computerized bulletin board system run by Jim Dory that is still active to this day. They had the trailer without land for sale for around $50,000 plus, and I bought it for nearly $40,000 3 years ago. One of the stipulations was I had to move the trailer by the end of that summer, and I signed my name to that contract, and everything that could happen against that trailer getting moved happened against that trailer getting moved. I went and visited the local house moving company, the people that actually would move it down the road, and they said I needed to get the trailer lifted on better wheels, which they did not do. The wheels that were underneath that Chukotka Alaska trailer had long rusted away and were sitting in a pile underneath. So I had to borrow some beams from a house leveler, building mover, Roger Thompson. And Roger is one of those people you just have to meet. Again, like Chukotka Alaska and Builders Industrial, something that is only found in a place like Nome, Roger is a guy that can do just about anything. You're watching him here run a military spec engine preheater that runs off diesel fuel and requires no electricity. And he has hundreds and hundreds of little items like this all over town. Roger agreed to loan us his beams on wheels. He let me cut up some of his wood to use his blocking, which I labeled with Level Best Engineering, the name of his house moving company, and then moved his beams across town with my skid steer and got him underneath the Chukotka Alaska trailer. The trailer is nearly 70 feet long, and there's no beams in town that long that could carry the load except Roger's. It's hard to see in this angle of the picture, but this trailer itself is also 25 feet wide. It has another section that is jagged back, which nearly doubles the width of it, and it's held underneath by several pieces of steel that look like they were stolen from some 1940s bridge. The problem is Roger's 60-foot long beams with wheels were under another building, an old helicopter hangar that was sitting on one of Q Trucking's parking lots, waiting for the person who had purchased the building or agreed to purchase it to pay for it. So I would stop in every couple of weeks and ask if the beams would be available and where the process is going. Finally, I said, if you're waiting for payment, obviously the purchase has not gone through. So how about I buy the old hangar and I'll have the money for you by tomorrow morning. So we agreed on a price of $97,000 for the hangar. I got the check ready, and when I brought the check to Q Trucking, I was told the person who was purchasing the building, after nearly 2 years of not paying for it, came up with the money. In Nome, you never know really what happened, but what I did know is that after that, the building got moved to its new place at our steel processing site in Nome, and I could take the beams and move them from there and put them underneath the trailer. This is a pretty typical story for how something happens in Nome. I had lifted the trailer in the summer. I had purchased it with the anticipation of the trailer being moved that fall. But right after I got that rather rickety trailer up into the air 3 feet, we were hit by Typhoon Merbok. With winds approaching 100 miles an hour, the typhoon pretty much shut the town down for the winter. So you'll see in this picture here, I took the trailer, was sitting 3 feet in the air, and spent a couple $100 of cabling from Builders Industrial and cross-cabled underneath the trailer and double-blocked some corners. And amazingly, even though the trailer was facing the ocean, and many houses were washed into the ocean, the trailer stood, and that's a good thing because we didn't get to move the trailer until 2 years later. And of course, I was already in violation of my contract with the Dorys. But because of Merbok, Q Trucking was very busy moving buildings, replacing buildings, repairing broken roads. The storm really did a number on our little town and made the following summer extremely busy. So I would check in, and it's a little bit like dealing with the soup Nazi. If you call Q Trucking during the day, they will sometimes answer, but nobody who can answer any questions is there. So I learned from Roger Thompson you have to show up at 6 a.m. Do not park in any parking spot that'll be occupied by anyone. That's an art in itself. so you can discuss moving the house when people arrive. So originally Q Trucking said I needed to get the trailer up on beams, and then once I got it up on beams, they would move it. But that summer was very busy, and another fall went by with the trailer sitting on beams over the winter. So the following summer, I began my bi-weekly visits of Q Trucking. And I also began getting my new lot ready where the trailer was going to, the Discovery lot, just about 3 miles out of town. And I moved my dog team there, moved my both sheds for the dog teams there. One, a 25-foot long green shed, had spent the summer on a trailer half the size and weight capacity of the shed, and the other one was sitting on the back of my flatbed crossways. The truck and the trailer were out of use while I was waiting to make room for our new home to be put in place. Most of the summer, Q Trucking equipment was busy. The work season in Nome was very short. You get about 3 months of actual excavation work, and usually 2.9 of those months it's pouring rain. So I was told about midsummer that at the end of the season they would move the store that's sitting on Rogers' wheeled beams, and they were true to their word. On the last possible weekend that you could move the trailer, about 5 days before the first snowstorm when the ground was frozen, Q Trucking came on one Saturday morning and started the process. Now, Charlie Reeder, the owner of Q Trucking, which was started by his dad, is one of those people who's an expert operator. There are people that think they're expert operators, and there are people that act like they're something special, but Charlie really is something special. When you watch this trailer get moved out, not a single mistake was made. It's like watching somebody compose an opera or compete in an Olympic sport and do it without effort. In fact, later in the video, you're going to see someone try to move a container and then have to have Charlie take over and move it. And you realize the difference between what Charlie does and what most people do with an operator is the difference between a 4th grader with a recorder in Yo-Yo Ma on the cello. About a week before we moved the trailer, Charlie had a couple of requests. I had to chain the trailer to the beams and then chain the beams to each other. And throughout the video, you can hear the trailer groaning and creaking against the beams. But throughout the whole trip, only one of my chains popped off and one of the 12 tires went flat. One of the things you can know is you've got an expert in operating is they're not in a rush. There isn't any anxiety. So they dropped the trailer, blocked it up, moved it, rehooked about 5 times. And the whole trip was never trying to get that little bit more between hooking or dropping. It was just done in a very calm and organized manner, like you're going to go pick up your groceries or something. You can see here the original trailer, and you can see the add-on that they made to make it a double wide. This is happening on one of those beautiful mornings in Nome where the storms have gone through and all the gold miners have left town, and we get that month of great weather. The trailer was left in the city port parking lot overnight, and then the next morning, amidst our first snow of the season, it was moved out to our place down the road to our dog lot, and you're watching them move our containers so that the trailer can easily move into its spot. And to get it there, Charlie had to back down the road and then push the trailer down our driveway, turn it 180, which was very narrow, and then manage a corner to get it on our pad. I wish I could have gotten an aerial view of this master at work. What you're watching here is a loader unable to pick up the container, and it's interesting that it's not the loader, it's the operator. That's Charlie versus somebody else. So here they take the trailer and turn it all the way around, pushing down my narrow driveway, reposition and block it, and drop it on my pad. Once the trailer was in place, then we had Charlie pick up our 2 other dog lot trailers and put them in the right spot. That green trailer, I could barely get it up on top of the trailer it's on, the green shed, and I don't know how I was going to get it off. The other shed, the one where all the paint is flaking off, would have probably disintegrated when I tried to get it off. It took Charlie about 10 minutes. O love of beginning, O joy of beginning, O early morning, first grass when it seems forgotten. What is green? O first page of the book, of the expected, very surprising. Read slowly, all too quickly. The unread part will wear thin on you, and the first pour of water into the sweaty face, the fresh, cool shirt. O beginning of love, look that wanders away. O the beginning of work, fill oil into the cold machine. First handle and first hum of the engine starting, and first puff of smoke filling the lungs, and you, new thought. That's Bertolt Brecht, the poem O Love of Beginning, in 1934. I'd like to say thanks to Jim and Carol for their patience in getting the trailer off their property. I'd like to say thank you to Roger Thompson, whose help was invaluable. He lent his 60-foot beams with wheels and his hydraulic lift kit and much knowledge. I'd like to say thank you to Q Trucking, who did excellent work in getting the trailer from where it was to exactly where I needed it. And thank you to the City of Nome for the permitting and helping me through the process. If you want to see what happens to the trailer in the future, click like and subscribe, and you'll get to see part 2 and 3 of this trailer's future in Nome, Alaska.